Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our final Genius Exit interview with the final Genius left. It is the winner of the Genius Game Season 1, the one and only King of Business, Ken. Ken, how are you doing? Day after.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Yeah, it was fun watching it back yesterday. We filmed it so long ago. It's just quite a nice feeling now. It's all out and it's done, and everyone knows the result. It's been hard, like keeping myself from talking about it with people.
Yeah, so what is that like to you go on a show, you win the show, like it takes you a week, and then all of a sudden you've won the show. You then have to go home and wait, what was it, 14 months to even be
Yeah,
able to talk about this?
14 months. It was hard because it was like such a big part of my life.
Uh,
Even though it was only 2 weeks, it was such a big experience. It's such an interesting experience. So you feel like, oh, people don't know about this big thing that I've just done, and they won't know for a year. And I can't just be like, hey, I just did this cool thing, everyone.
uh-huh.
It was hard. And also,
What did you
you know that meme which is like the man standing in the corner in the party. But like,
Yes, yeah.
it felt like they don't know I'm the genius. Nobody here knows I'm the genius. That's what.
Oh no, I had that for Survivor, except it was first boot. So,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
better
yeah,
gig, I'll tell you that much. Was there anyone
yeah.
that you let it slip to, or were you like locked solid?
Look, just my ex, who their relationship ended after between the show coming, filming and coming out. So by the time it came out, the only person who knew the result was my ex, and then no one
Mhm.
cast. So
Okay,
fun,
well,
situation.
happy they didn't leak it. How did
Yeah.
you originally get on Genius Game, and had you watched any of the original version?
I hadn't watched much. It was mainly The Devil's Plan. We watched The Devil's Plan, and I just was like, okay, I'm going on the UK one. I actually saw the applications like 2 months before, and I was like, that's not for me. I'd never do something like that. And then I watched Devil's Plan. I was like, I want to do this. I just want to be on there.
Yeah, yeah, no, very fair. Um, so I want to kind of do more broad because I feel like from the final game, right? There's not many like specific questions I have of like, oh,
um,
how'd you find the same or different, whatever.
I do
Starting
love
off,
that game. I love that
oh,
game. It's so fun.
it's
It's
so
addictive.
much fun. Yeah. Which game for you, like as a gamer yourself, as someone who's very familiar with board games and stuff, which game for you was like the most fun to play, and which game were you like just this? I could throw this away.
I think the most fun was Safari Race. It was the most board gamey one. So there was like, it was just like, this is a board game. This is just straight
Yeah.
up a board game. It's just got a simple mechanic, and it was quite a nice mechanic to try and figure out where to. And watching it back, it's like, oh, we didn't play it perfectly. Actually, there's still ways to optimize. It was quite interesting, but we were just I was just like trying to work out where to put everything in the best place. And it was just like, that was kind of my element. It was like, okay, this is the most like the kind of board games I play.
Mhm.
It's just picking up quickly and then just getting everyone to do what I say. So
Yeah.
that was quite fun. Obviously the zombie game was pretty much solved, so that was quite a tough one. That was yeah, day two. I was like, okay, man, I'm bad at this game. They don't show
Yeah.
this. I suggested a strategy. That's why I'm not really in these episodes, because I suggested this strategy in day two that just failed immediately because
Mhm.
I didn't know about the bubble. Like, well, I think I may have known about it, but I still thought there was a way to counterplay it. So we went for a greedy strategy where we touched twice, and then suddenly we just ran out of people to touch. So we're like, okay, we know we're toast round
Mhm.
two onwards. So it was just like, okay, we just have no agency, and that was obviously like just quite a tough game for us, because it was like, oh, we're just trying to convince people to do something which would be actively wrong. It was like
Yeah.
everyone was just like trying to convince. I tried to convince India to break from the alliance. It's like, and then just like in the middle of the conversation, you're like, oh, there's no
It
reason why
doesn't work for you. Yeah.
yeah, there's no reason you should go with what I'm saying. I have no convincing point here.
And
Yeah,
isn't it so frustrating that like in the original Korean version too, they came up with that exact same strategy that
mm.
worked the exact same way? Like
Yeah. I mean, it's just a very
we've seen
it's
this
just
played
a strategy
before.
with no counterplay. Yeah, no
And then the
counterplay.
um the Safari game, actually, that is, they made a Genius board game in Korea, and it
Oh,
literally was just the Safari
oh,
race.
cool,
So it's
fun.
fun that you call that out as like
Oh
this is
yeah,
the most board game like one, because it was the
yeah,
one designed to be a board game.
yeah. It's just like it has like 10, 12 turns, and you just play them out. Yeah, it's quite
Yeah.
very board gaming here.
I want to go back to episode 3 specifically, because
Mm.
I felt like in a season that had a lot of high points for you, that was like without question the
Oh yeah.
low point. I want you to take it through from your perspective. How how much like first of all, two questions, I guess. Why did you go along with Ben's plan? And two, how much were you trying to break away from that wasn't shown?
So yeah, round one was really weird. We went away, and then suddenly like there was like kerfuffle going on in the other rooms, and everyone was coming back, going, "Okay, Ben's just said he's the undercover agent." And at that stage, we're still not sure what the hell is going on. If it's some kind of weird, what's going on here? And then
Mhm.
eventually he came to each and one of us and told us individually. By that point, it was quite hard to coordinate. So we pretty much were like, "What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing?" And everyone was just like, "Okay, we." And I think it was India who actually said, even though she was the one who wanted to play the game, someone definitely was like, we just have to go with RSE now. Like we haven't plan. And it was pretty much go with RSE that round and just see what happens. It was a tough situation because ultimately, every single person believes if they are the single one to break, then everyone will just leave
Isolate
that
them.
to go. So I'm sitting there and I thought, okay, actually, it's probably going to be me and or Manfi. I think that was not only very heavily implicit. It became explicit as the game went on. By round two, me and Amanfi had a chat, and I'm pretty sure we both said it's either you or me.
Yep.
We pretty much worked that out. And at that point, we were like, okay, let's work together and solve it. And then when people came into the room and it became clear that no one was going to really help us. Or actually, a few people actively lied about their clues to us, which we were kind of like, okay. Which I think we were still trying to solve it with the clues available, but half of them were lies, probably more than half. Probably 80% of them were lies. But it was still so hard to not do RSE because as soon as one of us breaks from the RSE, the other one's suppose. Well, this is the thing. Like, I think in hindsight, Ben was always going to target me over Manfi, but
Yes.
I didn't know that until probably round three,
Hmm.
and it felt like, oh, this is now. What can I do? I could just break away. Even then, I'm still like, I'm probably 90% the target, but it's still even better
Well,
to
it's
not.
the trick of it's the
Yeah,
trick of unionizing, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, if
yeah,
only one of you guys
yeah,
breaks out, then yeah, that person's going to be instantly targeted. But if like
yeah,
four or five of you guys broke
yeah,
out, he
exactly,
can only target one of you,
exactly, totally.
and then the others are safe.
And to be honest, like in hindsight, obviously, I can just go, yo, I'm not solving this. Let's
Hmm.
form a pact with other people. But it was so hard to do that at that stage early in the game. It was just like, it just felt like no one would go with you. And yeah, obviously, me being a target in hindsight, I'm the sole one who should be doing that. But
Right.
and actually, I've heard a lot of good like ideas, which is like you actually use threats to like get people to go with you. Like in the last round, I could go up to someone, and go, listen, just tell me what you said, or I'm taking you to a
Hmm.
death match. There's stuff like that that I really missed. But by round three, I was kind of completely deflated. I was quite dejected. Actually, I think this is probably the saddest I got in the show. I was just like, okay, I'm not. My confidence was very low after the zombie game actually because pretty much had no agency in zombie game, and I was like, I'm not good at this game. I'm not good at this format. I'm not as good as I thought I'd be. I have no agency in any of the first three games. It's really hard, but I will just focus entirely on winning this death match. I was just like, okay, I'm going to accept the death match. I'm going to accept that I could just go home in that death match no matter what it is, but I will mentally prepare myself for the death match. And that's why you hear me say that. I think a lot to other players. I'll just go up to someone and halfway through the game and go, "You should be mentally preparing yourself for the death match," because that's what I did for like the second half of the game. I just be like, okay, let's get prepared for like just potentially just losing today.
No, that's great. And did you watch any of season one of the Korean version after the fact, or
Yeah, I've watched all of season one.
okay?
I've watched bits of season four and bits of season
I
two,
was I was
three.
gonna say that does feel very Jinho to me,
Right.
of the person who could not get his feet under him for the first few
Yeah.
episodes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then finds himself in the death match against Gura. Funny enough, in Indian poker.
And in the book, yeah, no,
Uh,
there's a lot of similarities, a lot of mirrors.
yeah, I thought it was a very fun, yeah, parallel exactly.
Yeah.
As such a big gamer, and someone who understands games so well, if you were to make one change to the format, let's assume there is a season two, one change to Genius Game to help the show, what would you change?
I would. Can I do two? Because I thought
Yeah.
of two that kind of work in tandem. One
Mhm.
is that there's no joint winners in any game. That
Mhm.
really screwed up zombie match because there was no incentive for a group of you just have four joint winners. So there's
Yeah.
no incentive to try and betray within that. And then you've suddenly only got like six people up for deathmatch. And it just kind of stodges up the game. And the same in Diamond Dilemma. If they knew had they won, there was no incentive to not be a joint winner, unless you just really hated someone on your team. But it's like that stodges up the game. But a bigger one I came up with is actually a useful garnet. Is that if you start the day with the most garnets, and you're the only person who starts the day with the most garnets, you get guaranteed a token of life unless you're the sole loser of the game. So you just get an automatic token of life unless you come bottom. And that would incentivize a lot of people to wake up in the morning and go, I want to end the day with the most garnets. Because actually, even though the garnets weren't worth anything in this game, even if they are worth something, I think the promise of garnets is still not incentive enough to get garnets, because we didn't know they wouldn't be worth anything, and we still didn't play them because the incentive is speculative. It's like, it's not a real tangible thing. You're not going, I want to have most garnets in case something happens. It's not enough for you to actually go out there and just betray and get garnets. Like if Amanfi was told, you end the day with most garnets, you start tomorrow with most garnets, you're safe. You're like, well, way more safe than you would be. He would have betrayed on that extinguish like immediately. He would have been like, okay, I'm pretty much guaranteeing probably safe for the next episode. He would have been safe from he would have been safe from Bedalia's pick. He would have just been much safer. I think he would have just gone for it. Whereas garnets, you can make garnets the most powerful thing ever. People still won't see it as like I need to get them right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I've never thought of that, and I actually do really like it. I guess the question I would have with that is about pooling, like contestants kind of. But I think that's still fun. Like, you're basically like, we can't both pool for each other. Like,
there's only one.
Giving you,
there's only one. Yeah. Like, and really make things at the top of the garnet count quite interesting, because the person with the most garnets will then play quite safe in that game because they need to not lose. But then that just creates another person.
Or then what if it was at the end of the round and like the person is sitting there thinking they're all safe, but behind their back, these people have been like pooling the garnets to someone else to take them down. So all of a sudden they're not safe. Like,
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of ways it would. Yeah, I think something like
it makes the garnets important. That's what really matters here.
Yeah. I think you just want to wake up and go, you want people to wake up and go, I want garnets, because they're not doing that. We're not doing that in that game.
No, absolutely. One criticism that we had for you throughout the season is someone who has been such a big fan of your stuff on LinkedIn, No Rules Barred.
I'm not funny. I'm not funny. Yeah.
You are funny. Genius
I'm not funny in the show. I'm not
Genius
funny.
Game is not funny. Why? What do you think it was? What was the reason why there wasn't that much comedy from you on this show?
Partly the edit. I don't know if Pasha mentioned this, but like, they've edited that quite very interestingly, because that death match between me and Pasha, we were both talking so much shit. And they've edited it that she's the funny one in it. But actually, I come in and I immediately start going, oh, I'm very gassy today. Are you gassy? Do you feel very gassy? And we just have like a 5-minute conversation before the game even starts about like needing to shit and having a nervous shit. And that tone stays that way for the whole death match. For like, it's quite a long death match. We're just talking shit the whole death match. But they've
literally talking shit.
Yeah. And we're just like, and we're making a mockery of it, sort of, by not taking it that seriously. But I think that it still should have been shown that way, because it's why games are great, because you can just have a stupid, silly time. And after I saw that episode, I realized they are trying to kind of make me seem like quite a serious player when there are a lot of moments like that which could have been edited a different way. And that was actually really key for my social game, because people had that same thought all the way up to there. But I kept joking, oh, you're a comedian, but you've never told a joke. You've not said anything funny yet. And then he watched that and he was like, oh, that's this guy's fucking hilarious. They all thought, the people you can see it in the edit, the people in the lounge are like, what the hell are we watching? It was so different from the first two death matches in tone, and it really set me aside, because like, I think Alison was like, oh, we've just seen a complete new side of you. And that was when my social capital started growing, but people actually started to warm to me. But a lot of those moments, I think, have been cut out. And I think it's a mix of like the narrative they want to show, but also just probably just whatever editing time constraints. Because I noticed I'm doing a lot of
Editing time constraints. They had 14 months.
No, I mean time constraints of the episode. Because what I've noticed is that a lot of the time I'm doing the confessionals, I'm explaining strategy. And they quite liked that I was able to kind of voice strategy, but it kind of makes everything I'm saying quite dry. But I'll also be talking shit like in those confessionals, but they don't have as much of that. So I think it was a kind of, they needed someone to kind of explain the game quite often, and it kind of fell on me a lot of the time, I think.
I felt like a huge miss from the show, and like the biggest thing the show was missing was a sense of humor throughout. That I definitely know you were providing. It just they didn't.
No, it's okay. I was quite serious in the show as well, so like it's quite hard because you've seen me play Cocktail, I think, right? And
yeah.
In Clock Tower, if I play chaotically, I get killed. I throw the game for my team, and honestly, I could have gone in there and played that way, but I knew it would have just sunk my game. And obviously, you can decide to go and do that, but I would have really kicked myself if I sunk my game because I was being entertaining. So it's a hard balance. There are a lot of moments where I really regret that I didn't do something really entertaining for the show. Like my biggest regret is in episode 1. Is round 3. I can't win. I can't lose. I should have tipped myself off and go to jail and sit in there with Paul and just be like, oh man, Paul, look what they've done to us. Me and you, we're the unlucky ones. We're in the same boat. And I think stuff like that, I only thought of after the show. I'm like, I wish I did more of that stuff, but you don't really have time to come up with.
Oh, of course. And it's your first day. Like, you know,
exactly.
That would have been cheeky though. That would have been fun.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, just stuff, and the viewers be like, "What the hell is he doing?" And I think, yeah, and then I'll come out and be like, "Who tipped me off? Which one of you tipped me off?" And everyone would just be like, "It'll be chaos."
All right, I got 2 more questions if you've got the time. I know that we set this for 20 minutes. All right, number 1 is obviously you said you're a big Clock Tower guy. I was curious, what role do you feel like you played Genius Game the most like?
Oh, good question. I think the role like kind of something like the investigator, which is quite a like important role. It's not like the flashiest role, but it's quite important, and it's kind of like a solid rock role. I tend to feel like I'm playing that role quite a lot in Clock Tower. Just this guy who just has a bit of info
and cards up, like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
And let's do the word association game.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, always love doing this. Take it back to like right when you were leaving the Genius Game house, not specifically right after you won, because I'm sure it was like phenomenal, marvelous, love them. But like while you were in the house, give me like the one word that comes to mind for them. So let's start off with the jailbird himself, Paul.
Awkward.
Okay. Scott, this is always like a test for me to like remember the boot list of the show.
Unlucky.
Pasha.
Chaotic. Very chaotic.
Amanfi.
Impressive man.
I agreed. India.
Intimidating. I find it so intimidating. He's not intimidating at all in real life, but actually, she talked about coming in and being like, "Oh, I'm gonna overplay my skill." It really worked. She was for like, it's so funny because she's the youngest, but she was like probably had the most intimidating presence when she was there.
Allison.
What's measured?
Who's after Al? Oh, Bex.
Greatest ally.
Yeah.
Support
most people.
Yeah.
Bedalia.
Charming.
Benjamin.
Intense.
And then Charlotte.
Go with I already used impressive. I find her impressive. Well, can I use one again?
No, you could use impressive.
That's impressive. I found her in Dice Deception really impressive, and there was a lot of mutual respect going to that final. That's a nice thing about the final. The final's not that flashy. It's not. We were never expecting the final to be like a great episode. I always knew it was going to be kind of fun. Fine. It was just a result, but at least you can sort of see we have a lot of mutual respect for each other, which is nice.
I did love you saying, or her saying, like, this would mean the world to me, and this would be like the most important moment. She's like, yeah, no, it'd be fun. I thought that was a really good.
That convo is really just cut down. We had like 20 minutes of chat, and they've picked some interesting like snippets. It doesn't feel like we had a real convo.
They chose what they thought was us. Ken, thank you so much for joining me today. Would love to get the chance to talk through your full game at a later point, especially with Cory. I mean, I know he'd love to ask some questions.
Oh yeah.
So we'll be in touch with that. But until then, congrats. So, what's the first thing you're going to spend your money on?
I actually, because it took so long to come out, I received it slightly early. The first thing I spent it on was expensive dental treatment. I had to get like an implant, which is so expensive, and I spent a bit of money on that. Yeah, that was like, oh, thank God it's come, so I could just get this implant in.
Yeah, a new grill. Wow.
Yeah,
really living large.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone to listening to our Genius coverage. We will have more postseason coverage to come. This is not the end, but for now it is. So thank you guys all for listening, and have a great day. Bye. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Genius Recap exit interviews for RHAP as a podcast, who Rob unfortunately couldn't make it here, and Cory as well could not make it. But it's all right because we have an amazing guest. It's the runner-up of Genius Game UK Season 1, Charlotte. Charlotte, day after, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, like I just had a really good game against Ken. I'm not angry or anything about the outcome. Like I really do value Ken as like a player, and yeah, I did my best, and that's how it went. That's how it played out.
So how did you get involved in Genius Game originally? Had you seen the original show at all? Like from beginning, how did you end up here?
So before applying, I actually hadn't seen anything. But then after applying, they had given us the first episode, and then we were basically allowed to do as much prep as we wanted. So after watching the first episode, I ended up watching the whole of the first season, and that is as much as I got with the Genius overall. Yeah.
So watching through that original first season, did you actually see any parallels between your story and anyone else's? I'm just curious.
A lot of people said I was Jungmoon coded.
Okay, yeah, I kind of see that.
I see that as well in a way. I think we were both zombies as well. And I tried to play away from her downfall by not going the same route that she did. And maybe it made for boring TV, but it got me through that round, so I will take that.
Me and Cory actually made the comparison of saying, like, in terms of just how the story played out, you and Ken reminded us a lot of Kyungran and Jinho, just in the sense of you had the player who was on the bottom a lot, but was like constantly fighting through, and then like had like a couple of those like genius moments where they like shocked everyone, and then you being the Kyungran who was like constantly in the know, constantly in like the majority alliances, one of the big mover and shakers, makes it to the end and doesn't even have to play a single death match until the final two. So both super impressive plays, very, very fun to watch. I want to go back to specifically the second game that we saw in the final. I feel like this was a new game that me and Cory had never seen before. Obviously, you had never seen it. I feel like probably no one in the whole world has thought about this game more than you have. So, like, with full hindsight, like, what is the optimal strategy for that game?
So, with hindsight, obviously, I wish I had known that now. I think the best play to make is to put your triangles in. There are two like edges, right? So if you put your triangle right, so in the penultimate one before the edge, then you're forcing your opponent to have to waste one on the edge. So in hindsight, I think those two positions, one on the top side of the G, one on the bottom side of the G, are really good places to put your triangles.
Oh, interesting. And because then that'll leave that one spot that you could put your one there, basically, and the opponent can't put...
Yeah,
if the golden triangle gets there, it's going to be 1 versus 0.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah. So you would want to go first in this game and just lock those up real quick, and then you've like...
Yeah, and I think we both played a bit suboptimally actually, because those two places weren't even picked up like even in round 3. Like they were still available in round 3 to go for first. But yeah, I just didn't recognize it. I think Ken also started to understand the game as it went on, but maybe didn't really find like that we think it's the most optimal at this time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Interesting. If you were to choose one moment from the whole season that was like your proudest moment, what would that be?
I think it was saying to Bedalia, I won't put it down if you don't put it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I knew I would win at that point if he didn't put it down and I didn't put it down. I was kind of hoping to make him think maybe we could tie and play another round. I don't really know what I was. There was only 10 seconds
Uh-huh.
left, so I was just like, let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great moment. Um, oh wait, so they end the season, right, with David Tennant saying, like, "We'll see you again," or something like that, which obviously teases a season 2. As someone who got to play through all of season 1, if you were to make, like, one, like, fundamental, like, change to the format or to the show itself ahead of season 2, what would you change?
That's a really good question. I think one of the main issues I could see throughout season 1 was that a lot of the games allowed you to push a loser as opposed to
Mm,
um, going for a win. So it was much easier to go for pushing one candidate to be the deathmatch candidate and then just hoping you weren't going to be picked, as opposed to like, oh, let me put myself out there, come up with strategies, win this one. There just wasn't enough. There just wasn't enough like good
incentive.
things that incentive to come out of taking the win, because like Scott came out with a strategy. Game 1 came hard, came fast, and then day 2 he was gone. So it was kind of like you come up with these strategies, you get
Mhm.
targeted, you get put into the death match, and then there's always a chance that you can lose because you don't know what that death match will be. So I would change the games quite a little bit in season 2. I would hope that there would be more games where you can't force a loser, and ultimately it would be much better to play for wins as opposed to playing to not lose.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great point. Going back to that first round, obviously, like you and Scott were the figureheads, and Scott gets burned by that, but you don't. What do you think it was that allowed you to be able to like slip back under the radar after that moment?
I think there was two things. The first one was that I said very little in the roundtable moment. I tried to keep myself under the radar. Like that was my plan going in. It was more like if
Mhm.
someone speaks to me, I'll speak to you. And then Scott was like, "Oh, we should do this," and then someone else was like, "Oh, we should target Paul." So it was all like these plans are coming together. Maybe I can slip myself in to be the one taking the crown, but then I don't have to be the one taking the heat for it. And then I went on to say, "Oh yeah, it wasn't my idea. It was Scott's idea." Kind of like being like, "Oh my God, Scott's so smart," like Scott's a
Yeah.
mastermind. But also so that people wouldn't be like, oh, she's the one that targeted Paul. Like, you have to look out for her. She's a bit sneaky. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. And then that's how it went.
Yeah. Poor Scott. I mean, I was gonna
Paul
have to
Scott.
someone. Yeah. So I think around like episode 5 or 6, you referred to Bex, Pedalia, and Allison as the naive players in the game, and it became like this whole thing that I found very funny. Do you stand by that at all, or do you regret those word choice?
Okay, it's really hard for me to say yes and no, because in my mind the word naive isn't this terrible word that
It's not
people are
that
making
bad.
it out
No,
to
it's
be.
not
And
that
I was
bad.
like, foolish is worse, like, can't think for themselves is worse, like Ken's
Yeah.
minions could be worse, and I was just like, yeah, naive seems like a good word. Like I wouldn't mind if someone called me naive. Like babies are
Yeah.
naive, we all love babies. There's another funny moment where like I'm talking to Ken and Ken calls me vulnerable, and we've just had this
Hmm.
heart to heart and he calls me vulnerable, and there's this big misunderstanding because I'm like, vulnerable is the most negative word in the world, and this guy
Yeah.
this guy's just called me vulnerable, and I've just offered him my hand. Like what an ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's just like some sorts of misunderstandings. Like I do stand by the fact that I called them naive, but only because I don't think naive is a really bad word, and I didn't know it would erupt like that.
Yeah, no, I think even at the time we felt like you were biting your tongue a lot with naive because it was such a strange word choice. But yeah, they really took that one and ran with it. Not that it was that big a deal, honestly. Um which game in retrospect now would you have changed your strategy in the most?
Ooh, well, I would definitely change game 3 because
Mhm.
it didn't benefit me at all. But obviously at the time I thought that it would because I thought that Ben would give me that token of life in Codebreakers.
Yeah.
That plan really only benefits 2 people. It benefits Ben, and then it would benefit the one who gets the token of life. And
Yeah.
I was just unfortunate enough to not get the straight answer. So I guess next time I'll just be like, are you going to give it to me? Yes or no?
Mhm.
If the answer's no, then obviously I would go and work with Ken and Indy and everyone to try and guess that word, because that would just be the most optimum play for me.
Yeah. How did your relationship with Benjamin develop? Because I feel like we saw in episodes 1 and 2, well, episode 1, obviously, he's not part of the group that forms around you and Scott. Then episode 2, obviously you're a zombie, so he couldn't include you, but uh, you still are kind of left out of the planning of the bubble. And then episode 3, it feels like you're all of a sudden you are like each other's number 1 and 2 ally until he doesn't give you the token. How did that develop?
So it wasn't shown, but on the day of episode 2, before the games were played, Ben, Indy, and I had a little chat, and we were like, "Let's go stick as a close triangle. You know, like we'll be the 3.
Mhm.
We'll try and take each other to the end. This will be our little alliance." And then Bedalia came in, and then we were like, "Oh yes, like we can be a 4."
Mhm.
But it was more always like we will be that 3 until the end. So that's why I was like, I take the alliance seriously, because it was so early on, and I was like, this could be a good a good 3-person squad to take to the end. And that's also why we went straight together when it was the zombie game. It was me, Indy, and Ben, and I was like, I did actually try to convince them to let me have the win, but they were right. You know, Ben's smart. Ben knows that it doesn't benefit him. But the main difference with Codebreakers is that he becomes the deathmatch candidate if he loses. Whereas if
Right.
I was to lose as a zombie, I wasn't going to be the deathmatch candidate. So I think that's like the main difference between those two games. And so in day 3, because I was still I was like, oh, I've gained Ben trust. Like, I told him I was a zombie. I'm telling him what's happening outside of the rooms that he's not in. He should give me the token of life, and we can continue working together. But he doesn't do that, which breaks my trust. But I completely understand like his explanations of it, because he's completely right. Like, I don't trust him. I don't like him very much at that moment. I really like him now, but I don't like him very much at
Mhm.
that moment.
Yeah.
But if I really had to, and it benefited me, I'll always work with the people where it benefits me, because my aim of the game is to win overall. And I'll just take whatever steps I have to get further into the game.
Yeah, it really feels like that formation of that trio would have been great to put in the edit, especially how it all pays off in Safari Game. That feels like a really important moment that we missed in there, because a lot of the show we were just like, oh, where are these alliances coming from? Like, how did these 3 start working together? But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else you can think of that like the show didn't air, but like really was foundational in the gameplay that we saw?
I think one of the parts that was pretty big was Ken's relationships that we didn't get to see, and I didn't know until after we were chatting about it, and it still didn't
Mhm.
even air. But like, I thought Ken completely had 0 social connections, and then it turned out instantly he's working with four or five different people that really want to work with him. And I was very
Mhm.
surprised. I was like, when did this happen? Like,
Yeah.
how did this happen? Did I miss something like completely? But he had
Right.
actually been creating these connections throughout the whole episodes. Like, he had a chat with Bex, I think it was episode 2, where they formed a close connection. And then after the death match in 3, they formed a close connection with Bedalia. And that's where this had all come to fruition. But they didn't show it in the edit. We also didn't know it as like outside players, but I think that would be really important to know and understand why Ken suddenly has all of these social connections.
Gotcha. One thing that I usually do when I'm trying to figure out the timetable of a specific season, especially before I knew how the show was filmed, is look at the contestants' nails. And that's if the nails are constantly changing, that's a way for me to be like, oh, it must have been like weeks between this stuff. But your nails were constantly changing, and I feel like it was like only days between different episodes. Did you just bring a bunch of different nail sets?
Yeah, so I actually I made them all before I went on the show, and I
Oh,
made
no
8 different
way.
sets just in case. Um, I'm glad you looked really closely, because there's actually one day where I don't change my nails, and it's because I was super sad the day before, and then I just
Oh,
stayed in
really?
bed. I just stayed in bed that whole day after we were dropped back onto the hotel, and I was like, I can't do anything. So I have nails that are the same for 2 days, but all the other days are completely different. Yeah.
That's so funny. I used yours and India's to tell, and I was like, all right, well, India's are staying the same, but Charlotte's are different. So I was like, it could go either way. Maybe India just likes that look. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they were filmed pretty much back to back, like day to day, and then after the 4th day we had one rest day, and then right before the finals we had one rest day.
Wow, that is absolutely brutal.
I think it
Yeah,
I think it benefits the younger players as well, because I was like
uh-huh.
always up and at it. I was like, yeah,
Right.
let's go.
Yeah.
And then some people were in the background like, I need an aspirin, or like
Yeah.
someone hand me some paracetamol, please. Like, I think it did really affect people's mental and physical health as well.
I wish in the South Korean version they had just like snacks and coffee all around. I think that could have really like helped with the vibes. Before we let you go, I love to do the word association game for your entire cast. So give me just the one word that you think of, and again, like transport yourself to like the moment you were leaving the castle. Maybe not the exact moment because you were probably pretty bummed out specifically in that moment, but like transport yourself back to the genius house. So let's start out with Paul.
Overconfident.
Okay. Oh, these are already good. Scott.
Strategic.
Pasha.
Unfiltered.
Amanfi.
Dangerous / scary.
Allison.
Kind.
Did I say India? Did I skip India?
No, not yet.
Okay, India.
Indy's my bestie.
Okay. Bex.
Social.
Social. What was can I ask what the pause was?
Because I want to give her more credit than just social, but there's only one word, so I don't know. It's like perceptive social, a perceptive social player.
Okay. Bedalia.
Genuine.
Benjamin.
Prepared.
Okay. And then obviously Ken.
Genius.
Yeah, that's very accurate. Is there anything else from this experience that you wanted to share? Any other like feelings you have towards it, or anything you want to get off your chest?
I think in general, I've seen a couple of like, I read a lot of the comments about what happened, about like people catching up and whatever, and a lot of them are really kind and lovely, and sometimes some stand out and they're like, oh, she's a bit mean, she's a bit nasty, like, and I read those things and I'm like, I just want to explain that game me is not real life me. But even if game me was real life me, I wouldn't mind so much, because I think the edit showed me as someone who was really strong and really confident and cutthroat. And I actually do wish I was more like that in person. So I don't mind it at all. But I do hope that people understand it's not reality, and everyone, not even just me, everyone is just is not exactly the same as the way that they're perceived on television. But everyone is just really kind and really lovely, and we all stay together and we all stay in touch and we all meet up. Like, I watched the finale with Ben and Ken yesterday, and that was amazing. So yeah.
Any person who watched that show and walked away from it being like Charlotte is mean has either A, never watched reality TV before in their entire lives, or B, never met like more than 10 people in their entire lives, because that is absolutely not the takeaway that any rational person should have.
Thank you.
If they took away the takeaway that like, wow, Charlotte is a gamer, she played hard, she made it to the end and did basically everything right throughout the whole show until just getting to the end and losing to a phenomenal game player in his own right, that would probably be an accurate take. So Charlotte, thank you again for joining us. Hope we get the chance to talk later on deeper about this whole experience. I know Cory would love the chance to get to ask you some questions as well.
Definitely.
But until then, I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Hope you have a great
course.
day as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.